The plane was falling. Fast. The nose pointed down toward the dark water of the Pacific Ocean, and every person on board felt their stomach rise into their throat. Far away, 2 Black Hawk helicopters were flying a normal patrol over international waters. Then, on a private military channel, a calm woman's voice came through the radio. "This is an ex-Navy SEAL. Call sign Reaper. I am taking them down." The pilots looked at each other. Neither of them understood what they had just heard. But in a few minutes, they would understand everything. 2 hours earlier, the plane had taken off from Manila, heading to Los Angeles. In seat 22C sat a woman named Maya Reyes. She wore a plain gray hoodie and jeans. Her hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. She carried a small backpack and nothing else. She looked tired, like someone coming home from a long trip. No one on the plane noticed her. No one had any reason to. The man next to her, in seat 22B, tried to make small talk. He asked where she was flying from and what she did for work. Maya smiled politely and said she worked in logistics. It was not a lie, not exactly. She had once managed people and equipment in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. But that was a different life. She looked out the window at the endless blue ocean below. It had been 8 months since she left the Navy. 8 months since she hung up her uniform and told herself she was done. Done with danger. Done with violence. Done with being the person everyone called when things went wrong. For 12 years, Maya had served as a Navy SEAL. She was trained in close combat, hostage rescue, and emergency flying. She spoke 3 languages. She had led missions that never appeared in any newspaper. Her call sign was Reaper, a name she earned after a rescue mission in East Africa where she saved a group of aid workers from armed kidnappers, working almost completely alone. But after one mission went terribly wrong, a mission where she lost 2 teammates in an ambush that intelligence had failed to warn them about, Maya could not continue. The guilt was too heavy. She signed her retirement papers and told herself she was finished with that world forever. Now she was just a passenger. Just a tired woman going home. At least, that was what she wanted to believe. It happened without warning. A loud scream came from first class. Then another. Passengers in the middle of the plane stood up, confused, trying to see what was happening. A flight attendant ran past, her face white with fear. Maya's body reacted before her mind did. Her hand moved toward her hip out of pure habit, reaching for a weapon that was not there anymore. She was not a soldier now. She reminded herself of that, again and again. Then the intercom clicked on. A man's voice, rough and angry, spoke in broken English. "Everyone stay in your seats. We control this plane now." The cabin exploded into chaos. A woman began crying. A child screamed for his mother. The man in seat 22B turned pale and gripped his armrest so hard his knuckles turned white. "This can't be real," he whispered. "This can't be happening." Maya sat still, forcing her breathing to stay calm, the way she had trained herself to do for over a decade. She listened carefully. 2 voices. Maybe 3. She could hear feet moving near the front of the cabin, near the cockpit door. Then she heard the worst sound possible, the cockpit door being forced open. That door was supposed to be locked and reinforced. If it had opened, it meant the hijackers had already reached the pilots. A second voice came over the intercom, colder than the first. "This aircraft belongs to us now. In 15 minutes, we begin our descent into the ocean. No one will stop us." The plane tilted forward, just slightly. But Maya felt it immediately. They had already started going down. Maya closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her promise to herself, no more fighting, no more killing, no more being the person who carried death into a room. She thought about the 2 friends she lost on her last mission, and how much she blamed herself, even though the investigation had cleared her of any fault. Then she opened her eyes and looked around the cabin. 2 rows ahead, a young father held his son close, whispering that everything would be okay, even though his voice was shaking. Across the aisle, an old woman held a photo of her grandchildren tightly against her chest, tears falling silently down her face. Near the window, a teenage boy was trying to text his mother goodbye, his hands trembling too much to type properly. 240 people were on this plane. 240 lives, each one full of family, memories, and dreams, all about to end in the cold water below if nothing changed. Maya could stop this. She knew she could. She had the training. She had done harder things before. The only question was whether she was willing to become that person again. She thought about the boy trying to text his mother. She thought about the old woman holding the photo of her grandchildren. She made her decision. Slowly, calmly, she unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. The man beside her grabbed her arm. "What are you doing? Sit down, they'll see you." "Stay in your seat," Maya said quietly. "Stay low. It's going to be okay." She walked toward the front of the plane, her steps calm and unhurried. Passengers stared at her, confused why anyone would walk toward danger instead of away from it. But Maya's face showed nothing. No fear, no excitement. Just focus. Near the galley, a flight attendant crouched behind a cart, shaking. Maya knelt beside her. "Is there a radio here? Something that can reach outside aircraft?" Maya asked softly. The flight attendant, still in shock, pointed to a small emergency headset kept for communication with military aircraft in certain zones. Maya had learned about these systems years ago during pilot emergency training. She put on the headset and switched to the guard frequency used by military aircraft flying over international waters. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "This is an ex-Navy SEAL. Call sign Reaper. I am taking them down." Static answered her first. Then a surprised voice came through. "Identify yourself. Who is speaking on this channel?" "Former Lieutenant Commander Maya Reyes, United States Navy, retired. Call sign Reaper. This aircraft has been taken by armed hijackers. It is descending toward the ocean. I am moving to retake control. Alert the nearest carrier and prepare emergency vectors." There was a pause, then fast chatter in the background. Someone checking records. Someone confirming her identity through the passenger list. Then a calm, older voice returned. "Copy that, Commander. This is Black Hawk Lead. We have your aircraft on radar. We are already moving toward your position. Good luck." Maya took off the headset and set it down. Her hands were steady. She took a breath, and for the first time in 8 months, she let herself become who she used to be. 2 hijackers stood near first class, shouting threats and waving weapons. Neither of them noticed the quiet woman moving low behind the seats, using the aisle and galley walls as cover. Her training told her to think of this like any other close space operation: identify each threat, plan the fastest safe path, remove danger before it can react. The first hijacker, closest to the cockpit, had his back turned, watching the instrument panel with excitement, waiting to watch the plane hit the ocean. Maya moved fast and silent. In one motion, she disabled him before he could make a sound. She caught his weapon before it hit the floor. The pilots, tied up in their seats, stared at her in shock. She placed a finger to her lips, telling them to stay quiet, then quickly checked on their injuries. Both were hurt but alive. The second hijacker heard nothing until it was too late. Maya moved through the first-class cabin with total focus, using the training that 12 years of service had built into her muscles and mind. It was fast. It was over before most passengers even understood what was happening. The third hijacker, standing near the middle of economy class, turned around just in time to see his partner fall. Rage filled his face, and he charged at her, swinging wildly with a sharp weapon in his hand. This fight was harder. He was strong, angry, and desperate. He swung the weapon in a wide arc, aiming for her chest. Maya stepped back just enough to let the blade miss her by inches, then grabbed his wrist and twisted it hard to the side. He cried out and dropped the weapon, but he did not stop. He threw a heavy punch that caught her on the shoulder, knocking her back into a row of seats. Passengers screamed and pressed themselves against the windows, trying to stay out of the way. Maya recovered quickly. She ducked under his next swing and drove her elbow into his ribs, then followed with a sharp strike that made him stumble. He grabbed the back of a seat to stay standing and lunged at her one more time, both hands reaching for her throat. Maya caught his arms, turned her body, and used his own momentum to throw him off balance. He hit the floor hard and did not get back up. Maya took a cut across her arm during the struggle, and her shoulder throbbed from the earlier punch, but she stayed focused, breathing through the pain, until the threat was finally gone. She stood in the aisle, breathing hard, blood on her sleeve, the cabin silent except for frightened breathing all around her. 3 hijackers. All stopped. 240 people, still alive. She moved quickly now, checking each row as she passed, telling frightened passengers in a calm, steady voice that it was over, that they were safe. A flight attendant found a first aid kit and wrapped a bandage tightly around Maya's arm to slow the bleeding. There was no time to rest. The plane was still falling, and somewhere in the cockpit, 2 injured pilots were waiting for someone to save them too. But the danger was not over. The plane was still losing altitude, and the pilots were too injured to fly safely. Maya moved to the cockpit and took the controls herself, guiding the injured captain through each step using calm words and clear instructions, just like she had done during countless training exercises years before. Slowly, the descent slowed. Then it stopped completely. The plane leveled out over the open ocean, engines steady, systems responding. Through the radio, Black Hawk Lead gave her new information. The nearest safe landing point was a naval ship many miles away, too far for a normal runway landing, but close enough if she could bring the plane down safely on the ship's flight deck, something almost impossible for a commercial aircraft, and something Maya had never attempted before in her life. "There's no other option," she said into the radio. "Then we'll talk you through it," the calm voice answered. "Just trust the instructions." For the next 30 minutes, guided by radio and her own steady hands, Maya brought the badly damaged aircraft toward the distant ship. Every second felt impossibly long. Her injured arm throbbed with pain, but she kept her focus on the horizon and on the voice guiding her home. When the wheels finally touched the deck, the entire aircraft shook violently before coming to a stop. For a moment, everything was silent. Then cheering broke out across the cabin. People hugged each other, crying with relief. They were alive. They were safe. Maya leaned back in the seat, her body finally allowing itself to feel the pain and exhaustion she had been ignoring for the past hour. Her vision blurred, and the world went dark. Maya woke up in a hospital bed on board the naval ship, bandages wrapped around her arm and shoulder. A doctor told her she had lost a lot of blood but would recover fully with rest. An officer visited her later that day, thanking her for saving every single passenger and crew member on the flight. He told her that news of what happened had already spread, and that people everywhere were calling her a hero. Maya only shook her head slightly. "I just did what needed to be done," she said quietly. One by one, passengers came to see her before leaving the ship. The young father brought his son, who gave her a handmade paper airplane as a thank you gift. The old woman with the photo held her hand and told her that because of her, she would get to see her grandchildren grow up. The teenage boy told her that watching her stand up when everyone else was frozen with fear had changed how he thought about courage forever. Each visit filled something inside Maya that had been empty since the day she left the service. She had spent months believing that leaving violence behind meant leaving behind everything she once was. But now she understood something different. Her skills were not something to be ashamed of. They were something she could choose to use, carefully, only when it truly mattered, to protect people who could not protect themselves. Months later, Maya returned to her quiet life. She worked a normal job, spent time with old friends, and slowly rebuilt the peaceful routine she had wanted for so long. But now, every few weeks, she also visited a training center, where she taught young recruits about decision-making under pressure, about staying calm when everything around them was falling apart. She was no longer running from her past. She had found a way to carry it with her, without letting it control her. Sometimes, at night, she still thought about that flight, the fear in the cabin, the ocean rushing closer, the voice on the radio calling her Reaper for the first time in months. It was not a name she used to want. But now she understood it differently. Reaper did not mean someone who loved violence. It meant someone who stood between danger and the people who needed protection the most, someone willing to act when everyone else was too afraid to move. And if that call ever came again, Maya knew, deep down, that she would answer it, carefully, quietly, and only when it truly mattered.